Welcome to the Deadlifts and Pizza podcast, where we discuss no BS fitness and nutrition.
We're your hosts. I'm Laura.
And I'm Jamie.
Let's get into it.
All right. We are going to talk about Stacey Sims today, right?
Sure.
Okay. So she's a doctor. She's a very well researched, amazing scientist, and she specifically studies female things in terms of fitness and nutrition, right? And I love her. I have her book, Roar. I love Stacey Sims. So it's not that we're necessarily, you're shaking your head, and I'm already excited to have this conversation. I love Stacey Sims. I look at a lot of her stuff, blah, 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 but her stuff's been gaining a lot of traction. And so a lot of people have been having her on our podcast. And the most recent one was, what's her name? Mel Robbins.
Yeah.
Had her on the podcast. And it's spurring a lot of conversation online. And I think the reason it's spurring so much conversation is because Mel Robbins, and I know that Stacey Sims herself said some extreme statements, because I think the most important thing is everything is nuanced, right? And nothing she said sounded nuanced. But Mel Robbins also has a very specific way of making things not nuanced and pinning people to make extreme statements.
Yeah.
Do you know that movie? I don't even know what movie it is, where it's everything is awesome.
No.
What movie is it? Everything is awesome. It's somebody listening will know what I'm talking about. But when I think everything is nuanced. It's so dumb of me to think that. But I'm in my mind, I'm everything is nuanced.
It's funny that you know a movie. I don't, 'cause I'm the one who knows movies.
Well, I don't even know what movie. I feel like it's Lego Movie or something
Oh, never saw that.
And they're everything is awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No.
So you just finished listening to it. What did you think?
So yeah, I agree about Mel Robbins making it worse. You know, I've never listened to her podcast before, but as I'm listening to her, I'm like, and you know me, I don't like to talk bad about people, and I'm trying to really, really hard, but it's I found her kind of annoying, like the way she was saying things, and I'm like, no, that's not what she said. And then in the beginning, her introduction, just as soon as she started talking, I don't know, it just turned me off a lot of the things she said. But I wrote down, I listened to it and I had so many thoughts as it was going. Some things I agree with, some things I don't agree with. And I won't remember all of them because I just have, it's really fast, so many thoughts, and then I don't know how to get them all out.
Yeah.
But I did write some down. I wrote down just words that could trigger thoughts, you know?
Yeah.
But
I do remember one of the things that Mel Robbins specifically said on that podcast too was there was a point where Stacey Sims was talking about the weights, and Mel Robbins was wait, explain to me what you mean by I don't know, 3 sets of 5 reps. What does that mean? And so she explained it. And then Mel Robbins said something wait, so you're telling me I really need to put down those pink dumbbells? It was such a stereotypical statement that I was is she for real?
Yeah, no, that's what I felt the whole time I was watching it or listening to it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Are you being serious? And then I even saw a clip going around online, and I read the comments under one of them, and a couple people said that pink dumbbell comment. They were she literally just had somebody on her podcast last week, and then the week before that was talking about strength training. She knows this already. She's just trying to say these things that are very, I don't know, whatever,
that's
catchy.
How I felt the whole time. It was so fake. I felt like she was so fake the whole time, and she's I've been doing it wrong the whole time. This is brand new information, and I can't believe I've been doing it wrong the whole time.
And it's really you, Mel Robbins, who has different fitness people on your podcast all the time, have never heard this before.
And some of the things she's so you're telling me that if I go and I exercise, that it's stressing my body out so that I'm going to adapt and make changes and improve. That's what you're saying? I never thought of it that way. And I'm you're Mel Robbins. You talk about this kind of stuff all the time about doing tough things. Right?
Yeah. Because and why did you have Stacey Sims on your podcast if you'd never heard any of this before? How do you even know who she is if you've never heard any of this before?
Right. And I've never listened to her podcast before, but I've seen clips of her talking, and I normally agree with a lot of the things that she says, and she doesn't seem like this type of person that she was when she was in this. It was a very weird interview, but maybe she's like that with all of them. I don't know, but I was
yeah, I'm not sure either.
It doesn't feel authentic to me. It feels fake, and that always turns me right off.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was laughing to as I was listening to it, because I was thinking okay, so like Mel Robbins is very like, you know, in your face and like, you know, loud and like whatever. And so she would say things like, wow, that's like, blah, 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 like, that's fantastic. And then she's like, thank you for bringing this information. And then like Stacey Sims would be like, yeah, you're welcome. Like, I'm like, that would be me in this podcast. Like two separate like
You're welcome.
personalities of like, she sounds like very more like, I don't know if she is, but she seems more introverted and reserved. Not like shy, but like introverted, not like loud and in your face. So it was
Uh-huh.
kind of, she was probably like, okay, this is too much.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But I know one of the things that we were talking about last week, and I feel like is a continual conversation that we kind of bounce around, is the idea of training fasted.
Yeah.
And I think on the podcast, and you can confirm because you just listened to it like
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes ago.
It's my
But
first
you,
point.
yeah, yeah, okay. So the
It's the
basic
first thing we
idea
talked
that
about.
women shouldn't train fasted, and it's always the conversation of like, is it just not as optimal, or is it really going to like absolutely eat your muscle away if you even consider not eating before you train, right? It's like, is it nuanced or is it not nuanced?
She didn't phrase it in this podcast or the last one I listened to that it was nuanced. It wasn't like it's more optimal, which I agree it is more optimal to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Like that isn't the argument, but she never phrased it that way. She's always like, women need to eat before they train, otherwise this happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she talked about how she talked about just like some of the things she talked about how like this is her thing, right? Women are not small men and we're different, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we shouldn't train like men. And the reason that women don't make progress is because they train like men. And that statement alone like was like, no, I actually started making progress once I started training like a man, but whatever. And she's not talking about lifting heavy weights or anything like that, but if you just hear that statement, I'm like, no, following men program, like following a guy's program can actually probably be much better than following a program that's geared towards women, because the men's program is actually what you probably should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that was a thing. And then she was talking about how a woman could follow a man's program. It should just be a program, but whatever, a man's program. And then the man is getting fit, and like after a month of doing it, the man is going to get fit and lose fat and build muscle and blah blah blah, where the woman will come to her and say, you know, I feel like I'm fatter, I have less energy, I forgot all the things she said, but they feel tired and wired, and the reason why is because they're not eating before their work, or yeah, they're not eating before they train because they're training like a man. That's one of the reasons. And she was
Mm-hmm.
saying that that makes you feel tired and wired. And I'm trying to remember everything she said. I had it all,
Well,
but
yeah, I mean that basic idea that it's not like that's not the way that women should do it.
yeah, and that like how we talked about last time about your hypothalamus, and that it, you know, when you train fasted, it feels like the stress, it makes it so it's going to, okay, there's no food in my environment, I have this muscle tissue that is more, requires more. I don't think I'm going to be able to maintain this muscle, so I'm going to use it for energy for this workout, that kind of stuff. And that
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing about it raising your cortisol, and it can mess up your sleep and all of this. And and okay, I think that this may be true. And like I said this the first time we talked about this. If you are somebody who's chronically under eating, so if you're already chronically under eating, then you train fasted in the morning, I could totally see this happening. Or if you're going and you're doing like a cardio workout, then I can see this maybe happening where you're using a little bit more of your muscle for energy. But I still don't think after 12 hours of fasting, I don't think my body is it, if I was
Gonna
doing this,
instantly start like eating muscle.
yeah, I don't think our bodies work like that. I don't think it's freaking out after 12 hours. I think it's going to take my body weeks of doing this before it's going to do that. And I was thinking of like, remember when I like couldn't sleep when my carbs were too low?
Yeah. Yep.
And this is that's the wired and tired. Like that
Yeah.
was that exact feeling where my cortisol was all screwed up. That's what she's talking about. I know what that feeling is like. And I don't feel like that when I train in the morning. But I started thinking about it. Okay, when I was in that, doing that special diet, my calories were really low, my carbs were really low, and I was eating at specific times. I don't know how late in the day I was eating, and I most likely was training in the morning. So, I mean, in that case, it might have actually been helpful if I ate something before my workout. And I was thinking of, like, there was other times where I would go into a cut and the same thing would happen. I wouldn't be able to sleep. And sometimes when I go into a cut, I'll eat later on in the day so that it's easier to maintain that low calories. You know what I mean? Like waiting till
Mm-hmm.
later, because then it
Mm-hmm.
just becomes a lot easier. This cut and the last cut, I didn't do that. And I've actually been eating before my workout, not every time. So I wonder if doing it when you're in a calorie deficit could be beneficial that way. But I just don't, it doesn't bother me if I do it, when I'm eating at maintenance. And I don't think it should, because I think your body is like, okay, she had enough food yesterday. It's fine.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a lot of talking.
No, that's okay. That's what I wonder too, because like I was going through and I was on PubMed and I was trying to look up all of the like research that Stacey Sims is attached to. And not that I am, so like, just put that out there. I'm not like a research scientist. I am not
Yeah.
like, all these things. You definitely should trust somebody like Stacey Sims to read and interpret research better than me.
Yeah.
But I still wanted to see some of the things. Like, are there actual studies that directly compare this in women? And there really aren't. There's a lot of studies that study a whole bunch of different elements, and a lot of them are in like athletes with women. And then you take like data you might pick up from one study and another study and another study, and you can put them all together to like create this conclusion. And I really I see what it means. But yeah, it's like, well, what's the difference between somebody who, because low energy availability is something she talks about a lot, like not having enough food, calories, carbs in your system in general to be able to like perform well and have results, which we know is generally true. Women generally kind of undereat, and even when they think they're eating more, they're really still like kind of a little bit still under fueling. And so are we comparing, like, what are we comparing here? Is it that all women must eat before they work out, or is it most women are in low energy availability and you also need to be eating before you work out because you're already in this low energy availability state? And so if you eat before you work out, you're going to reduce the impacts of, like, what if you're not in a low energy availability state, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
That's exactly how I feel. I think that's the reason why there might be people that it's like, oh, this is so helpful, is because they probably they already weren't eating they already weren't eating enough.
They weren't eating enough. They weren't eating enough.
I think that's what a lot of it has to do with, because yeah, like I said, I know that I'm not tired and wired. Actually, this morning I was super anxious. This morning, super low energy, felt, I don't know why I've been anxious the last couple of days, but I was very anxious. I did my workout. I didn't eat before my workout this morning, and I felt so much better afterwards. Very level, good energy, not like bad energy. And I mean, I got 17,000 steps today, you know. It's like,
Yeah.
and I didn't eat before my workout and it was fine and I sleep fine. I think it's only when my calories are low.
Yeah. And I
And
mean,
I
to
think that would make a difference.
Stacey Sims's credit too, if you really actually listen to what she's saying, she even says you don't need much. You could put a little bit of protein shake in your morning coffee. And like that is
Yeah.
literally what she's talking. She's talking 10 to 15 grams of protein in the morning. She's not talking about eating breakfast. She's not talking about necessarily. She's saying for strength training, you really need to have at least like a little bit of amino acids. And her reasoning for that is because of high cortisol in the morning, which is normal, because of the fact that a lot of women do like train fasted and these stressors and all these things, that there is, especially when we have hormonal issues, we have menopause, premenopause, that progesterone depletion, and really creates this imbalance with estrogen, and which causes like anabolic resistance in the muscle, like fat loss resistance, all these things. And that essentially the idea that having some amino acids come into your system not only tells cortisol that it can start to safely lower, which is what it's supposed to do anyway, but a lot of times we keep it chronically elevated almost like by accident. So it sends that signal to like cortisol can come down. And it also kind of sends that message to the body like, hey, we have amino acids coming in. We don't need to like eat away at our muscle in order to like, whatever.
Mhm.
So we can actually like go ahead and build muscle and all of this stuff. It's like just sending those messages, which I can see like that makes total sense. But again, it sounds more like this would be like more optimal
More
versus the
optimal.
opposite, which is the fear based of if I don't do this, all of my muscle gains are gonna completely disappear. My body's gonna eat my muscle, right?
Yeah, and I wonder, if you just have the protein after your workout, how big of a difference it makes when it comes
Right.
to that stuff. Like when it comes to having the energy for your workout, that's different. But the all the other stuff that you just talked about, I mean, what if I eat it right afterwards? How big
Yeah.
of a difference is it making?
Right.
Because it's
Yeah.
not like I'm working out at 10 a.m., and didn't eat before that.
Yeah.
I'm working out early in the morning. My cortisol is not going to be elevated till 2 o'clock in the afternoon,
Right.
because I worked out at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Uh-huh. But it would be if, and I think this is where it's so nuanced and it depends on like who is she really talking to here, because it can't just be all women because there's so many different scenarios, right? But it makes it sound like all women. But it would maybe chronically be elevated till 2 p.m. if you don't eat directly afterwards, and then you go to a high stress job, and then you're avoiding all
Yeah.
of the candy that's in the office because you're like, oh my god, I need to lose fat, and you're doing all these other things, right? It is
Yeah.
that's and you've got kids and everything else that we you slept crappy last night, and you're stressed about that project, and all of these little things on top of it.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was thinking of when I was listening to it was that like, women are not small men, and I also want to say, well, all women aren't the same either. You
Yeah.
can't put us all in the same box either. We're not all exactly the same. Our bodies are different. The way our bodies respond to things are different. And if you're that person that you feel like crap when you don't eat before your workout, then eat before your workout. If you feel fine, then you probably are fine.
Mm-hmm.
And don't worry about it that much.
And it's interesting. I want to go back to that women are not small men message, because even that it is nuanced. Because we're just hearing you talk about it, you were like, I didn't actually start getting results until I started training like a man.
Yeah.
And I would say for the majority of women, that is true. But this is where it's like, well, who's she talking to? Because the way she talks sometimes sounds like she's talking. And if you read her research and stuff, she works with athletes. She works with people that are more elite than we are, Laura, believe it or not.
Yeah,
She's
right.
working with like
She
top
was an
level. And
athlete too, so she's probably more
yeah, and
elite
a
than
lot
we
of
are.
times they're endurance athlete women that are also strength training. So
Okay.
the population of people that she studies and that she works with are not your everyday average person. But yet somebody like Mel Robbins is like, so what is your recommendation for the everyday
Yeah.
average woman? And she'll give her recommendation. And I'm not saying she's wrong in her recommendation, because but again, everything is nuanced, like with
Yes.
my song, because with the women are not small men, for the everyday average woman, actually, yes, if you start training like a man, that's true. However, if you've already gone down that path and you're already beyond that point, and now you're trying to train using like a standard strength training program, but you're also following this subconscious stuff in your mind that's like under eating, under fueling, high stress, forgetting about hormones, it's like women are not small men in that way. But in terms of just straight like the program you follow, I think we can all agree that every woman should be doing deadlifts, because she'll say women are not small men, but she's also not going and recommending you pick up like dumbbells. She's
Yeah, it's
saying to
weird. Yeah.
train. Yeah. So I think it depends on like the voice that you hear and like who
Yeah.
she's talking to and who's listening and all of that.
And in this podcast, and anytime I've heard her talk, she doesn't talk with nuance. She doesn't say, for most people, for like it's this is what people should do. This is this is that. And that's part of the problem I think I have.
Mm-hmm,
And then I have other stuff though. There's other things that she went into that I'm like, huh? No.
mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah. Where I listen
I
and I go, no.
I want to hear that, but I want to comment on what you said before about.
Okay.
And I want to believe that there's people that don't fall into this trap. Like Stacey Sims is somebody I want to believe doesn't fall into this trap, but I can't help but think maybe, because if I think about the past few months, she's really picked up steam and a lot of people are paying attention, even though she's been doing this work for a decade or more. She's been doing this work and sending this message. But I bet you once she started sending that message in a certain way, like in a more like streamlined, non-nuanced
Yeah.
way, I bet you and I bet you it changed people's lives. I bet you there were women out there who were under fueling, doing everything, and just by shifting that mentality a little bit, they're like, holy crap, And then it makes somebody like Stacey Sims go into a little bit more influencer mode. Like,
Yeah.
no, I can't just be like, hey, there's a gray zone. No, gray zone's not sexy and it doesn't get eyeballs.
Yeah.
I have to be like, all women should be doing this. And then
This is
people
what you need to do.
listen.
Yeah.
And then you can change lives.
And the thing that she said about like eating before your workout, like that's not bad. That's not bad advice. It's not like someone's giving you horrible advice. I don't think it's bad
Exactly.
advice at all. It's just
Yeah.
the science that she's saying. I'm not really sure, and in that I don't want people to feel afraid. Like, oh, if I work out in the morning and I don't eat beforehand, then there's no point.
Exactly. It's like trying to avoid like this is what she's saying isn't necessarily wrong or bad. It's just there's no nuance or context given.
Yeah.
And therefore that kind of stuff incites fear. And if you
Yeah.
start to get that fear-based feeling, that's like when the alarm bells go off and you go, okay, something's if I'm feeling scared, then something's wrong.
Yeah, and that feeling where you're like, well, I have to do it this way or this way, and you have all these like things that you need to worry about, and then you don't feel, you know what I mean? Instead of keeping it simple, you're always like, I have to do this and this and this, and yeah, I don't know how to explain what I'm saying, but
No,
okay.
yeah, it keeps you in a box and it makes you do nothing a lot of times.
Okay, then she talked about exercise and health outcomes, and that I loved. And she was talking about the the benefits of exercise, and this is something that I agree with her on because we just talked about this last podcast because she was talking about like different diets, like Mel Robbins was asking her about like all the different diets and blah blah blah, and she was like, actually, the thing that's going to make you healthier is exercise, and exercise I think matters more than diet, which is funny because that's what I was just saying like the last podcast.
Yeah,
all the reasons why and blah blah blah. So I liked all that. Great. I also like that she promotes, like sprint training and like high intensity training and lifting heavy and all that stuff.
yeah.
But eating fruits and vegetables, and she says they're good for your gut, all of that stuff. Great.
But what are some of the things that you were not feeling? What are we going into?
Okay. So let's go to rest. I wrote rest between sets. I'm going to just read what I wrote.
Oh, that was interesting. How women need less rest between sets.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Really?
That is bullshit. That is not how that works, Jamie. She said, okay, all right.
Go.
She said, okay.
Go.
That women, okay, she said.
Go, okay, go.
I can't.
Third time. Go, Laura.
My abs just cramped. She said that if women and men were doing a 5x5, if women and men were doing 5x5 training and they rested 3 minutes between their sets, that men would have better strength performance. Like their strength would improve better than women, relatively, right? This is talking in relative terms. But if they lower the rest times to 1.5 minutes, it would be the same. Okay, that women would have just as...
Oh, yeah, she did say that.
In relative terms. And the reason why, she said, and the reason why is because women have more type 1 muscle fibers, which are your endurance muscle fibers, and you can recover better. This is where I got really frustrated. Okay. And she said that if you rest, too long, that it like, let me see. I think I wrote it down. Fiber, I don't know, like they downturn with more rest. Basically, like it's going to hurt your performance if you rest too long. Which is true. Like if I'm waiting like longer than 10 minutes, my performance is going to, not be great, right? But no. And here's why. Because yes, women do have more type 1 muscle fibers. Correct. But when you are doing a 5x5, you are using your type 2 muscle fibers, not your type 1 muscle fibers. I was thinking
that when I heard that too. I was like, but aren't we, even though we have more, aren't we using the type 2?
Yeah. And you're using the ATP PC pathway, which takes 3 to 5 minutes to recover. So you have, all your energy pathways. That's your first, not your first one that you use, but that's the pathway that is for high intense exercises, usually lasting less than 10 seconds. Think of like, a 3-rep deadlift, one, going to your max. That's going to use like be for really powerful
Even sprints and like
movements,
true hit
sprints.
training.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's going to use that energy pathway. Then, and these overlap. It's not like you use one and then you go right to the other. They like overlap. Then you have like your glycogenic pathway, which is where you use glycogen that is stored in your muscles. Okay. So that is why that doesn't make sense that I'm going to just eat all my muscle when there's glycogen in there for it to use, and that women can't use it because we burn more fat because we have more type 1 muscle fibers when we're exercising. That doesn't make any sense because you're not using that pathway
I
when you
thought
are
about that
lifting.
too. Yeah, I thought about that too. And
I'm
she's
sorry,
saying
I'm
women
yelling.
recover. Yeah, no, you're not really. You're just talking very firmly.
Yes.
I thought about that too because I was thinking like, she's basically saying women recover better from these
Mhm.
things because we have more type 1 muscle fibers. We're built to recover quicker from those things. But yeah, you're comparing it to a 5x5 where you're lifting as heavy with powerful, you're using the different pathway. You're
Yeah.
using that ATP pathway. So I thought about that. I was like, but how are those two things connected? And
It does it.
I meant to look that up to see if she had more data on that because I was like, maybe there's something
The science doesn't
uh,
science. You know, people
uh
say the math doesn't math. The science doesn't science. And this is all the
yeah.
stuff that I'm like, because I have some knowledge, what you're saying isn't making sense. It might make sense if someone's hearing it, like, oh, that makes total sense.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you actually think about it, that doesn't make any sense. Like, yes, we have more type 1 muscle fibers, but we still need to rest that long. And I actually
But
looked.
that must be coming from some data that she has where she says when you compare women,
So
like she must be referencing something.
I looked it up briefly before the podcast to see, like, okay, is there, I didn't look up the actual studies. I just looked up, do women need less recovery time, blah, 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 like less, shorter rest
Mhm.
periods. And it said no. And it said that it was suspected that it was at one point from certain studies, but it's been debunked because of blah, 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 blah. So no, because
Interesting.
it doesn't scientific, like logically, that doesn't make sense. And I know personally, from a personal level, like if I am deadlifting, I need 3 minutes to 4 minutes to 5 minutes in between sets. If I'm doing it in a minute and a half, I do not have the same amount of strength.
Right. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
anecdotally,
same.
but that's because women aren't all the same. Maybe someone, and then if there was a study that showed that, my brain went to, well, was there people watching these women lift, like were they actually lifting close to failure? Because I have a feeling that
Right.
it could be that the women weren't lifting heavy enough, so they didn't need as
Mhm.
much of a break in between.
Yeah, because when I heard that part too, I was thinking, well, that makes sense for like maybe hit training. Like women theoretically should be able to recover quicker in between. Well, even like sprints and stuff. Would the same argument be true? But like resting heart rate, I mean, like maybe coming back down quicker. Like women recovering better in that kind of way, like a more maybe aerobic kind of way.
I did hear something about women with that kind of stuff, but I don't remember what it was, that we do recover better, but we're not actually better. I don't remember. I have to go back and look, but
Like basically recovery being better in more of the aerobic
mhm.
pathway and not necessarily the anaerobic because it
Yeah.
sounded to me like she was crossing those two things. Like women
Yeah.
recover better aerobically, therefore when doing a 5x5 they can rest less. And it was like, but that's on the other, that's anaerobic though.
Yeah, that's
Like I guess
anaerobic.
that's essentially sums up how my brain was like, but how do those cross over and why
Yeah.
are those connected?
That one made me very frustrated because I'm listening to it and I'm like, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I want to go look up more of that stuff in particular because I was looking up more of like the fasting and stuff, but
And that's what made me think of, like, remember when we were looking it up after last podcast, and she was saying
yeah.
like, we have these muscles, so when you're working out, we have the like type 1, so we use more fat for energy when we're working out. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
for like
Mhm.
doing cardio or something. But if I'm
Mhm.
doing in my workout, I'm using glycogen because I'm using the glycogenic pathway. Glycogen is in the name because glycogen
Yeah.
is being used, you know.
Yeah.
All right, I have some more stuff if you want to talk about it.
I want to hear it.
Okay. All right, ready for this one?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm still like thinking about this other stuff though, and I'm like also on,
Yeah, you have to
on the
listen to the
side.
podcast and let me know
I'm
what you think.
looking. I did listen to the podcast.
I thought you didn't listen to it.
That's what I just said when I heard that. I was, thinking the same thing. Yeah, I listened to it. I didn't listen to it as recently as you did. I listened to it a while back.
Oh, how old is it?
I mean, a while back means like last week.
Oh, I didn't know
It's
you listened to it.
many moons ago.
So I
Yeah,
thought
I
I was
listened to it
telling
when
you
it
some
like
new
first came out.
information. Okay.
Maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago it came out.
Okay.
I sent it
All
to my
right.
mom.
I thought you were just saw clips.
Mm-mm.
Oh, here's the last one that made me go. Pfft.
Science doesn't science.
Okay. All right. She said that once women are like in their mid to late 30s, that they can no longer build muscle when they lift in the 10 to 12 rep range, and that they need to lift in the 1 to 6 to 8, she said. So like 1 to 8, somewhere in between there, in 1 to 8 reps. And if you lift like a man lifts in the 10 to 12 reps, you will not build muscle.
Okay, go. Okay, Laura, go.
I call I call
The
bullshit,
science
madam.
doesn't science. Call bullshit, madam. Why? Tell me why.
Because there's so many studies that show that the way you build muscle is by getting close to failure. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. That's how you build muscle. She said it that we don't have the anabolic hormones anymore, so we need to, you know, uh, stimulate our central nervous system. So you need to be doing those lower reps. Okay, so you're telling me that that means that it wouldn't only just be lower reps. She didn't say this, but it wouldn't just be lower reps, but it would only be like big compound lifts. So like if I'm doing like a lateral raise, am I not building any muscle when I do that? I'm not sending like a signal at all.
Well, if you do a very heavy lateral raise so that you can only do
But it's
four,
not really
five,
a big
six
hit on my
reps,
central nervous system.
that's true. It's not because it's a lateral raise.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
she's saying you have to like, but your central nervous system and building muscle are not the same thing. One's strength and one's hypertrophy and your type 2. Okay,
Blah,
so
blah, blah.
you have type 2 X and type 2A. Type 2X is your power
Muscle fibers.
muscle fibers. Those are the ones you use for the low reps, and then type 2A are they have a little bit more endurance, and that's what you use when you go a little bit further. And use those mostly for most weightlifting exercises,
Hmm.
but they can also be used in endurance. They can last a little bit longer. And then you have your type 1 and your type 2. A store. That's where they store glycogen in the muscles. I was going somewhere with this. Where was I going? What were we talking about?
Um, rest times.
Oh yeah. So no, reps. So if you're training
Oh,
those
right,
muscles,
reps.
if you're
We
training
moved
those
on
type
from rest times.
so if you're training those type 2 muscles, then they're going to grow. And like if you're doing the low reps, you're training more of the other muscles, the type 1X muscles or type 2X muscles. Your type
Muscle
2A.
fibers.
Yeah, muscle
Yeah.
fibers. So if you are like, part of the reasons your muscles grow is because then they can store more glycogen so that you can, it's an adaptation.
Yeah, but I think her reasoning for it was a little bit more about when we lose the help of estrogen,
Mm-hmm.
our bodies generally don't want to build muscle. Whether you're applying the right stimulus or not to the muscle fibers, there's hormone things going on that are making it way more difficult for those muscle fibers to actually respond. And the loss of estrogen is one of them. And so she's saying you basically have to provide an outside stimulus that's
Mm-hmm.
it's strong enough of an outside stimulus that will help make up for that loss of estrogen so that your body has to, because you're still going to do it, but it's going to be at such a low and slow rate that if you make sure that that outside stimulus is really something your body has to adapt to.
But it's going to adapt strength wise because it's your
Right,
central
because
nervous
it's your
system.
CNS, right? So
That's what
what
I'm
is
saying. It's not the same. It's different. It's a different adaptation.
but what I understood her to say, and that's why I changed it from heard to understood her to say, because like maybe I need to go back and listen to the words.
Yeah.
When I listened to that portion, what I heard was women actually really can't build muscle mass very easily at all past a certain time. So we should just focus on building strength. And that's why we should be
Oh,
doing these things.
that sounds.
Not that these things will help you actually build muscle mass. They'll help you build like muscle strength and power.
No, because she was talking about that you don't have the anabolic hormones anymore, so you need to have this, to actually build muscle. She's talking about building muscle, not strength.
Okay. Because I've heard her talk on other things before, and that's kind of the general understanding that I took. It's like, we
So
can't
we're
really
just
build
supposed to
muscle
give
anyway.
up. We're just supposed to give up and not even try.
Not give up necessarily, but change the way you approach it. So instead of trying to build
I don't like that message either. That's even
slabs
worse.
of muscle, yeah,
That's
but what if it's
even
based,
worse.
what if it's just, I told you about that study where they took women and they put them in an optimal and a non-optimal, and they neither one built any muscle mass.
Because they weren't eating protein.
We don't know that they weren't. That just wasn't studied. That just wasn't part of the study.
I'm pretty sure
But a
that's
big piece
probably
of
what
it.
it was. Yes.
Right.
I'm
But
pretty
she
sure.
studies people who probably are eating protein, and she's still seeing them not really build muscle after menopause.
Telling people that they cannot build muscle after a certain age is not a good message. No,
But what if it's true?
it's not true.
How do you know?
Because there are old people who have muscle who are women.
What if they already built their muscle? What if a couple of things? One, they built their muscle before and they lost fat.
There's women who are old who've built muscle as they've gotten older.
Yes. What if they specifically they have trained at completely optimal levels and have genetic predisposition to be able to build muscle a little better than most? What if this is true for 90% of women?
It's not.
But I think it might be close to that. I think it actually is actually very hard for women without the help of estrogen to build muscle mass. I think it's exponentially harder. I'm not going to assign a percentage.
It's hard, but telling someone that
They
you can't is
Right.
not a good message.
But, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, I'm playing devil's advocate. I agree in one sense, but I think even this is nuanced. Maybe changing women's mindsets to, instead of constantly trying to build muscle, to really focus on building strength and training in this way is incredibly beneficial, because 100% you can, you're just wagging your finger at me, but I'm going to finish what I'm saying. You can 100% build strength and bone density. Right?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes, you can do that. Telling women that they might as well not train in 10 to 12. If you go past 8, there's no point in doing that. Like, you have to stay lower than 8 is not a good, like, oh, I'm never going to do push-ups again because I can do 25 of them, so I might as well never be able to do push-ups.
But we also know that as long as you're going close to failure, scientifically, you will build muscle, like regardless of like hormones, women, men, whatever. That's just generally speaking. It doesn't matter if you do 25 reps and that 25th was your failure, or if you do 6 reps and the 6th was your failure. So by telling people don't do those high reps, do these low reps because of these reasons, even if it's maybe like, okay, that's not a good message, but the women, as long as they're going to failure in like that range, they're still going to build muscle if they're able to build muscle. So maybe it is a better message to send that you should be lifting heavier and going lower.
Oh,
reps.
no. That's a terrible message, because the
Why?
message should be balanced. It should always be balanced. It should never be just this way is the only way. And there's many benefits to doing it past that many reps, because you get muscular endurance and other benefits that you don't get when you train in the low rep ranges. So you should do both. And there's certain exercises that are much easier to do at higher reps, like lateral raises and cable exercises and things, where it's going to be much easier to do at those high reps and continue to do different variations where you don't freaking get bored and then you get burnt out and then no.
That was the best. I'm not, again, like, I agree with you, but I'm playing devil's advocate and saying, no, I think this is the kind of stuff, maybe it is just me. I like hearing,
because I don't like hearing people argue.
No, because it's not arguing, because this is what Jordan Syatt talks about all the time, where he talks about, he says podcasting is his favorite form of media because he can give the nuance, because you can never in a 30 to 60 minute social media clip give the nuance necessary. Yeah. You have to be strong enough to grab people's attention. And he's like, there's better. yeah, there's nuance in everything. And I think exactly what we're doing is highlighting the nuance. And I'm only arguing with you because I'm trying to pull, because it's interesting too the way our brains, so you'll listen to something from this like renowned researcher and you'll be like, nope, I don't even need to like look up all that stuff. I know enough to know that there's no way that that makes sense. In my mind, I'm going, I know the same things you know. My brain went the same place. But instead of like, there's no way that's true, I'm like, there must be something I don't know that makes that true. Like now, like there must be some giant gap that I'm missing.
I
And now I need to look more.
If I don't know a lot about a subject, there are certain things where I'll hear it and I'll be like, okay, I need to research that more or whatever. So like certain things she talked about, I didn't know as much information about, so that I'm like, she could be, whatever. Uh, and like if it was just like one thing that I hear, but once, like I said, it's like my alarm bells go off. So once I hear something that makes my alarm bells go off, and plus the way that she talked in
Yeah.
these like absolutes,
Yeah,
it makes me go, no,
for
no,
sure.
no.
Because it's also, it feels similar. Tell me if you agree. It feels similar to the don't train in the high rep ranges because it's pointless. Train in these low rep ranges. Feels similar to the all women should train fasted. So
Mhm.
would you agree that it's probably more optimal for women to train in these lower rep ranges for even if, because we're not talking that low. She said 6 to 8. I mean, I a lot of times don't go past 8
She
anyway.
said 1
Sometimes
to 6 to 8. Like if you're doing
1 to 6
1,
to 8.
no. If you're doing 1, no, I don't think
Well,
it's
I
more
do one
optimal.
rep of everything and then I'm done.
No, I
Stacey
don't.
Sims said so.
No, okay. I can give you an example. So, I do think training in the lower rep ranges makes it easier to get to failure. And because of that, then yes. Because this morning, I can give you an example. I did barbell back squats this morning for 20 reps, then 15 reps, then 10 reps. 20
Oh
reps
my
was
gosh.
very low weight and I was dead. Like I
Yeah.
didn't lift very heavy. I was dead and I could have did more reps. My muscles could have probably did more reps. Like I wasn't really that close to failure, but
My muscles could have did.
my muscles could have did, but I was See, I told you I talk bad all the time and
Sorry.
it just comes out that way.
My muscles could have did it. I'm sorry to anybody Southern that listens because every time I talk like an idiot, it's with a Southern accent. I realize I am being very like discriminatory. I don't mean it that way.
You think Southern people are dumb, just so
I
you know.
don't. Really, I don't. But it's funny that that's what I do. So aware. I'm
Anyway,
aware.
anyway, yeah.
So your
So
muscles could have
my
done more.
my muscles could have done more. My muscles could have done more, but I was spent, and I'm like, I'm not.
So
I'm not
what's I if you're not your muscles? You were like, my muscles could have done more, but I couldn't.
because
What's I?
my mental capacity to be able to do more reps past 20 because it burns and burns
Yeah.
and burns, and then you're like, I'm out of breath. My
But isn't
heart
that your
rate.
muscles?
No. Well, no, my muscles are burning, but they still have the capacity to do
Yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't like, in other words, coming back up wasn't slow. It wasn't like I was
Yeah.
like grinding on the way back up. I was just, I'm done now. I don't
Yeah.
want to do
And
this
lots of
anymore.
things are done. You're right.
I feel
You
like
get
I'm
out of
gonna
breath.
puke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna puke. I'm getting nauseous. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. You're totally right about that. That's one of the reasons why, especially for compound lifts, doing lower reps, you'll get to failure better because you're not,
Yes.
the rest of your systems don't really have a chance to catch up and your muscles can actually be very challenged.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I do think it's easier to get there. But like something like a lateral raise, I can get to failure no problem with 20 reps.
Right.
You know,
Because it's a smaller
it's a
muscle.
smaller muscle because my whole central nervous system is not like, it's just too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember we talked about watches and do they get your heart rate right? It
Yeah.
did not, because
How do you know?
I saw it and it said my heart rate was like 95 or something. I'm like, nope, that's incorrect. And so
Interesting.
I measured it.
Uh-huh.
I just did it for like 10 seconds and then
Is your watch on pretty snugly?
yeah. Yeah.
Because I've
Not
noticed
like
if I
super
can even
tight.
stick a finger, if I can even stick a finger here, then my
Okay.
heart rate is usually a little off in Taekwondo. Like I'll notice like when I'm like,
Okay.
what? That I 160, this feels like 180.
Mhm.
And then I'll do one more notch on it. And then the next time it's like, oh,
Okay,
180.
I'll have to try that.
Just
I'll have to try
curious.
that.
I have a client that has an Aura ring.
Mhm.
And it was yesterday she was saying like that her heart rate was RDLs. She was like, my heart rate is like really high. And I asked her to check what it was, but it was like 165. And I was like, I
Oh
wonder
well.
how accurate that is.
Yeah. Mine said it was one it was said it was 90. I checked it this
Yeah,
way.
that's
It
not.
was 138.
Yeah.
So like it's a
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
difference.
It's
Yeah.
a whole different conversation. I want more accurate heart rate monitoring, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, I hear you. I do.
You got some more to say?
It's
You want to
just
say
it's just
something?
interesting our perspectives on it because I wonder, like I agree with you. I don't like the message of you should never do this because it's pointless, because there is no exercise or positive change that you make that's pointless. It's all good. But for somebody again that is researching women who are highly athletic and already in this like population that she's working with, if she's continuously seeing that these women, once they get to like perimenopause and active menopause, like postmenopausal, that they are not building muscle mass anymore, or at such a slow rate that it's like, oh my gosh, it's really not happening, and all of the benefits seem to be still happening over here in this rep range, then I could see saying, hey, this general message is important to know. But again, we make it very, very extreme, which I disagree with.
But what about the people who don't? What about the people who also work with women and don't say this?
Right. But how many people have been working in this specific population who are doctors and researchers who've been doing it for decades? Like Stacey Sims is like at the top of her field, right? I mean, there's really, I can't think of anybody else that works with women in that close of a capacity
Yeah.
that would say any, that, whatever. I can't think
Okay.
of anybody.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many people these people work with, but if she works with athletes, that's not always the same thing either.
Exactly. So that's a whole other thing where I'm like, that's what I'm always thinking, because more and more, as more and more people are being turned on to Stacey Sims content, a lot more people are starting to say, so what's your advice for the average everyday woman? And I instantly go, what would she know? She doesn't know what advice to give to the average everyday woman, but then she goes ahead and gives advice to the everyday average woman. And I actually don't really know if that's really, if she's almost like too elite.
Yeah.
Her information is too elite.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of like, okay, someone I really like, right? Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, right? She works in
Yeah.
older populations. Like that's her
Okay.
thing. It's like she works with older populations. I've never heard her say this ever. Like,
Yeah.
and I would think that she would mention this maybe.
So maybe it's true that in Dr. Sims's highly athletic endurance and strength athlete women, their muscle mass stops really kind of like they really struggle. But we're still not talking about a person who's never really, like, what if you take like a 50-year-old woman who's never really strength trained properly? You're telling me she's just not going to gain muscle if she does everything optimally? Like maybe it's still like that begin. And yeah, it's going to be much harder once she gets past the beginner, like the newbie gains, right? Because we gain muscle pretty quickly early on. Maybe after that point, it becomes harder to just add on slabs and slabs of muscle, right? So maybe we're not even, are we even talking about these, like, and that's where we come into general population women. You can't tell general population women, because that was another thing she said in that podcast too. It was like, so you're telling general population women to go lift as heavy as they can on a deadlift? That's a bad idea, right? Like there's so much. And I think she even mentioned that, like, you don't have to do it right away. You need to like warm up to it and stuff like that. But does that mean that person should not be doing like high rep lateral raises? Like, right? Like this, I don't know. It's where the nuance comes in too.
Yeah. No, I agree with you about the athletes. It could just be okay, they're already at they're athletes. They're already up here. It's going to be really hard to make any improvements when you're already there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have a woman bodybuilder who's 25 and she goes on stage and the judges are like, we really need to see a little bit more lat development, right? So she goes and she trains for the next 6 months and she does another bodybuilding show and she's gained an inch on her lats. So she did exactly what the judges said. She worked her ass off and she got a little muscle on her lats, right? Same situation. You take like a 55-year-old, like let's say postmenopausal woman, same thing. We need to see some development on your lats. She works out for 6 months. She does all the same things a 25-year-old does, and there's no change in her lats. You know what I mean? Like I could
Yeah.
see that being true. Like
Yeah.
hormones have made it very hard for me to go beyond where I'm at.
Yes, because you're already very, yeah. But
Right.
if
Whereas
you're
if you take an untrained
yeah,
25-year-old that wants to do a bodybuilding show and an untrained 55-year-old that wants to do a bodybuilding show, they should theoretically be able to achieve pretty decent progress. Maybe the 25-year-old will still make better progress,
yeah,
but the
faster, better,
55-year-old
but
will still make, yeah, she'll build muscle, she'll do all these
she'll
things.
still build muscle if she if she trains in the 10 to 12 rep range. There's muscle that's
Only,
still gonna happen.
yeah.
And also there's
Oh.
other reasons why I don't think that's a good message. If somebody's there and they're like, I need to do every exercise in this low rep range, that's going to be like, okay, really hard on your joints. Like
Oh
sometimes
my
it's good
God.
to
Yeah.
do the there's the like when we program, right? It's usually the first couple exercises. It's not always this way, but usually the first couple exercises, your big compound exercises, and those are usually going to be in the lower rep ranges. And then
Yep.
as the workout goes on, the things at the bottom, which are more isolation exercises and single joint exercises, you can do at higher rep ranges, and that's usually how it works. And that's like the best way I think to program, because you get a mixture of all of it, and you're not going to overtax yourself in one way or the other.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to tell you about, I changed my program. I want to tell you about it,
Okay.
but I don't know if we're done.
We can be done now. That was
Speaking of
all
that, let's talk about me.
okay. I
Um,
can tell you about my program too,
cool.
because I just changed mine.
I thought this was good though. So if anybody, I don't know,
Sorry,
I'd be curious.
I'm sorry I yelled. I'm not really angry. I just get
You
very
sh-
passionate.
you shouldn't. I think it's fun when the real you comes out because that's the real Laura.
This is how we talk to her in private.
She's so sorry, but really that's just how she really is. She always holds back.
It's funny because when Jamie first met me, she had no idea. She thought there was nothing going on in my brain, and that I was like,
Yeah.
she probably thought, I think she thought I was kind of stupid. And then I started
I
talking
didn't
more.
think that. I thought Laura is seems when you when one first meets her, like the most quiet, withdrawn, easygoing, zero opinions person. Like I thought you were that person that just is a yes, always okay, whatever you think, and you kind of are, but you have massive amounts of opinions like behind that facade. Whereas a lot of people with that kind of demeanor really are just like super bland, super like I don't have any like I just go with the flow on everything and I agree with
Yeah.
everything and I don't really have strong opinions, whatever you think is best. But you're like
I
not like that at all.
I know I just hate confrontation. So if I
Yeah.
don't know you very well, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, okay, sure, that
You
makes
don't know any
sense.
of the people listening very well.
No, but they know me now
Yeah.
better than most people. If you listen to this podcast, you probably know me better than most people, because this isn't how I am in public.
Yeah.
Only when I'm talking to Jamie.
Yep.
Sorry, tell me about your program.
So I was feeling uninspired for a while, and then I kind of got back into it, and I was doing more skill-based things because I'm in a cut, right? And then I did it. It was fun for a while, but I got pretty uninspired again very quickly. And
Yeah.
one of the things that was bothering me, and I go through different phases, like whatever. Like, one of the things that was bothering me in this phase was every workout felt like a chore. Like, all right, I'm going into this thing. And then there was one day like 2 weeks ago where I really didn't, the whole week, I didn't want to do my hour long whatever. I just didn't want to approach it. So instead, I said, well, Jamie, just do whatever you want. Just do, what exercise do you feel like doing today? I feel like doing squats. Just do squats. And then so I did them while I was working out. What?
Who feels like I feel like doing squats? What's wrong
I
with
know.
you? Of all the exercises, that's what I feel like doing. Squats. The one
I
that
felt like it.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It was the day that I sent you the screenshot of going all the way up to 170 on my squats for 3 reps.
Oh, so you
it was
really
that
did
day.
feel like doing squats.
It wasn't that I didn't feel like working out. I wanted to do it, but I didn't want to feel like I have this thing and every time I swipe there's a new superset, and then I finish the superset and I swipe and there's another superset, and then I finish that and I swipe and there's another superset. Like I didn't feel like
that's your
doing
fault
it
with all the
all.
supersets.
I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do. And I wanted
sometimes it's
to
nice.
not work out as long, and I didn't want it to feel like a giant chore. So it was like I want to do squats. I just don't want to I was already exhausted thinking about having to work out so anyway, I did the squats. It felt really good. I did it while I was working. So like I followed my rest times, but I would come sit down, do something, go do the squat, come sit down, do something, go do the squat. And when I was done the squat, I was like, what else do I want to do? And I was like, I want to do, blank and blank. And it was like 2 other exercises. So I supersetted those while I worked, and then I was done. I did 3 exercises. and it felt really good. And it only took like 30 minutes. And I didn't feel as exhausted as I normally do, but it was very effective.
Yeah.
So then I leaned into that and I was like, I'm going to do a 30-minute workout every day. I'm going to do a big lift 4 of the days. And then the 5th day, I'm going to do like pull-ups for reps is going to be my main thing. And then I'll do like maybe 2 other exercises. So this is my first week doing it. I did 2 days and it literally only takes me 30 minutes. I do a big lift and then a superset. And then I have an optional 4th exercise that I can do if I want. And I'm making it a program in the app too, right? I think I'm adding on to the quickie thing. I think I'm going to do it like as like cycle 2 or something like that of like the quickie workout.
Okay.
And well, for right now, I really like it. Like it feels good. I know I'm just going to do 30 minutes and that's it. And so I'm only doing like obviously the first big compound lift. I'm doing like 2 top sets of anywhere between 3 to 5 reps, whatever I feel like doing. So if I really feel like pushing the strength that week, I'll stick closer to the 3. And if I'm not feeling it that week, I'll go up to maybe the 5 and then I'll do a couple back off sets. So I'm doing like a lot of sets in that. And then with the superset, I'm doing somewhere in the 6 to 8 rep range. So still pretty low reps. Nothing really high rep, but when I go to Taekwondo, I'm doing 40 push-ups and I'm doing core.
Well, you're going to optimize the muscle building then. Everything in that low rep range.
Yeah, no higher reps.
No higher reps. It's pointless. It's just pointless.
Well, honestly, it kind of felt like I was like, I'm just going to cut out all this stuff after listening to Dr. Stacey Sims. I'm just going to cut out all of this junk at the end of my workout that's not doing anything anyway.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, my program, I just changed it.
What do you think of mine?
I love it. Sorry.
Do you really?
Sorry. I do.
No, for real.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I like that. Especially if you feel like you don't want to do it, you're probably not going to have a very good workout, right? So even though it's shorter, it could be more optimal just because you're more likely to push yourself in those exercises because there's only 3 to 4 of them. So
you know what's going to get me though, and it'll be fine for now because this is the phase I'm in. But once I transition into a different phase, guaranteed the thing that's going to annoy me is having to do something every day. And I'm going to be like, nope, I'm going to just combine these into one and do it all on one day and then have off the next day, which is just like a regular program, right? So
I'm like that. Like I will switch. I'll switch things around. Like I was just working out 5 days a week for my last program. This workout's going to only be 4 days a week. But yeah, I do that too. So like now I'm doing 3 full body days and a power day. So
that's cool.
Switch it around. Whereas I was doing before, I was doing upper, lower, and an accessory day. But I want to get better.
You just cut that accessory day. I mean, it doesn't do anything. You can't build muscle anyway.
That's true.
Well, maybe you're still good. You're in your 30s. You're in your 30s.
I'm in my late 30s. I'm already to that point where it's getting a little iffy. So I don't know why I should even try.
You really shouldn't.
There's no point.
No point.
I would have to say that the quad program disagrees with her.
Yeah.
Because most of those exercises were in higher rep ranges, and I'm pretty sure I built some muscle with that.
Yeah, but you didn't measure, so you don't have any data to back that up. It's all anecdotal.
It's just all. Yep, that's very true.
Yeah. So what's your program?
So I want to beat you at pull-ups, right?
Which you're not going to do, but continue.
Training, and I'm thinking about, okay, how do I generally get stronger at something? Like if I want to get stronger at something, what do I normally do, right? So obviously heavy lifting in lower rep ranges. So one day of the week I'm doing weighted pull-ups in the lower rep ranges. Another thing that can help me a lot is explosive reps. So doing things quickly and lower weight, but really fast, like powerful reps. So for that, I'm doing explosive pull-ups or like chest to bar pull-ups. I don't know what you want to call them. And I'm using a band. So I'm using the band to help me get up, and I'm pulling up like really fast and getting my chest to the bar. So doing like 5 reps of those, like 3. It's only like 3 sets though. And then the last day is just regular pull-ups, just doing them normal. And then I'm going to, do them on the off days too, like I was before, like 12 pull-ups a day. Maybe
not in a row. Yeah, not pushing to failure those days.
No, like sets. However I want to do it. I could do it in sets of 2, like 6 sets of 2, 4 sets of 3.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not 3 sets of 4. That's too many.
Cool. Let's see.
Yeah. Yeah. But I squatted this morning for lots of reps, and holy crap, I hate anybody, by the way, anybody who says that they like high reps, because there are people out there
Oh,
that are like, I love lifting
I hate
for
the way
most
it
of
feels.
what's wrong with you? Like, I think you need to go to a psychiatrist. Like, if you feel like
Yeah.
that is good, like that is fun, you'd rather do that. What's wrong with you? I think you're a sadist or something.
My husband worked with a trainer, an online trainer one time,
Mm-hmm.
and this guy took out all heavy lifts and everything was high rep. He was
Yeah, I remember you
no
telling me that.
deadlifts. Yeah, he was doing 20 rep squats with tempo. Oh my
With
God. It
tempo.
was with tempo. It would be like 3 seconds down, pause at the bottom. I mean, it took forever. That was the other thing too, is it took forever. I think that's one of the
Yeah.
things that really bugs me is that like, I start to lose count. My mind starts to wander. I'm like, what is this over yet? Like it just really, yeah, I'm not a fan of doing super high reps. I just don't enjoy it.
No, but the reason I'm doing it, and I do
Well, yeah.
things I
Why are
don't
you doing it?
enjoy, because I suck at my muscular endurance is terrible, and every once in a while I need to train it to get better at it, because I don't train it enough. So I do things that I don't enjoy because I know that they're good for me, but I
Ew.
won't do them as often as I do the
Who
heavy
cares
stuff.
about real question, who cares about muscular endurance? Why would I have a goal of having the endurance of my quads be higher? What does that help me do?
Lots of things, like with everyday life things.
I'm fine in
You know?
everyday life. I have enough endurance for all that stuff.
Yeah, I like to run outside and do things with children.
Yeah, I
You
do
know,
that and I don't have any problem with it.
well, I have terrible muscular endurance.
Oh, okay, got it. Oh, that's what you're saying.
Like,
Yeah, okay,
I need
got
to
it.
train it. I need to. Well, I'm good.
I just wanted to highlight my elite muscular endurance and I was using
Yeah.
that backwards way to do it.
That's the other thing, like that she was talking about how, we have more type 1 muscle fibers in this, and women are better at this, and blah blah. Like, well, we're different though. We're not all the same, because Laura over here probably has more type 2 muscle fibers, because
Right.
I can build strength really easily, but I suck at muscular endurance. Like,
Yeah.
I hate it, and I don't like training that way.
Yeah.
And I suck at any kind of endurance, like cardio or
Yeah.
anything. I'm not good at it at all.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, good chat. Thanks
Yeah.
for listening. Don't know what we're going to talk about
Sorry.
next week,
I feel
but
like I need to apologize. I'm so sorry. I feel like
she's
we're
going
going
to
to
text
delete
me
this
later and
now.
be like, "Can you delete the entire middle of the podcast?" Cuz
I will.
just Laura, don't re-listen to it. Just don't go re-listen to it.
Yeah.
Or
I
maybe you
I
need to because in your mind
I have to.
you'll make it sound
I
worse
have
in your
to.
mind though. Maybe re-listening to it you'll be like, "Oh, that was fine."
That's true sometimes, but I'll probably listen to it and go, "Oh, yeah. I was really yelling there. Why?"
No, you really weren't. It was very entertaining. You kind of were, but it was
I
great.
kind of
I loved
was.
it so much. No, it was like the
Yeah.
best.
Okay.
This is the best
Yeah, I know
podcast
you
to
like,
date.
but not everyone
Oh,
likes
and
that.
this is number 45. I feel like that's like a really nice number. Like the 45th
45.
podcast. Laura lets it all loose.
That should be the title. Laura Let's Loose.
Laura lets loose on the 45th episode of the Deadlifts and Pizza podcast.
Laura goes off.
That would be good. Laura goes off on whatever the topic is. Like whatever one we want to cherry pick from it, right?
Yeah, Laura goes off on fasted training. I didn't really go off as much as the fasted training. It's the other stuff that pissed me
I need
off
to find.
more.
It was funny because Jordan Syatt and Mike Vacanti for their personal trainer podcast recently. I was scrolling to try to find one that I wanted to listen to because I haven't been listening to it regularly, and there was one that said the Instagram Growth Guide, and that was all it was
Okay.
titled. And I was like, oh, I want to listen to the Instagram Growth Guide because I know that like it's different now, and I want to hear what they have to say about how to grow on Instagram. And for like maybe 5 minutes of the entire podcast, they were like, yeah, we have our new Instagram growth guide out. It's in the inner circle. You need to go join and then you can go look at it.
Yeah.
And the whole rest of the podcast. But then at one point, Mike Vacanti had a very exciting family announcement. I guess his wife's pregnant. And they joked about like, and Jordan was like, should we put this in the title? And he was like, no, you have to be like an OG listener to listen. They're like, well, maybe we'll call it like the Instagram growth guy, because then everybody will want to listen to that. And I was like, what the heck, guys? Like, you literally did that to me. And I had to listen to the whole thing.
I've noticed Mind Pump's been doing that too. I don't listen to them like rarely ever anymore, unless there's like a guest on that sounds interesting. But they do that now, because they used to put like everything, and then now it's just like one title, you know, like how to grow your quads, you know, whatever it is. But
we're literally going to call it that, and only the true like listeners are going to even get to this point in the podcast, which is beyond an hour, to hear us discussing the title. It's literally going to be called Laura goes off on Dr. Stacey Sims.
No.
Because then people will go look for Stacey Sims content and they'll find this.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I snorted. That's when you know it's good.
They'll search Dr. Stacey Sims and find us.
Laura. Who's Laura and why is she going off on her? Who is this person?
Dr. Stacey Sims finds me. Well, actually, I wish she would, because I want to have a conversation with her and help me explain. Maybe she could explain it better to me, and that I could be like, oh, that makes sense. If she was in front of me right now, this would be a totally different conversation. There wouldn't be like, what? That doesn't make sense. Yeah. Okay. I get it.
Thanks. Okay.
But what about,
Bye.
Oh, okay, thanks. This, you're great.
What do you think about glycogen? Oh, okay. Got it.
Okay. Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Bye. All right. Thanks for listening. If you like this, do all the things. Comment below. Tell us how much you liked it.
If you hated my rant, let me know.
Yeah. Do you dislike Laura now? Or do you like her even more? Let us know below.
It's just, okay. I can handle it.
Next week. Bye.